Just like physical illness, mental illness can be overcome. We just got to inspire people to believe that.
The mental health community and the firearms industry spend way too much time running parallel to each other without communicating. It's time we change the narrative and destroy the stigma that we both face.
Walk the Talk America presents Guns and Mental Health, a podcast for firearms owners, clinicians, and the curious public. It's always fun, isn't it? Doing the air drums.
Best intro music ever.
Good job picking it out. That was a bizarre time when we were picking that out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like late 2020. Nobody knew what was going on. We were launching a podcast, trying to make Earth better, and it was stressful. Hey, Kevin.
How's it going?
Good. With us today is Kevin Berry. Kevin is our marketing guy. He's not just the marketing guy for WTTA, but he's the marketing guy for Zephyr Wellness as well. And Kevin and I go way back. We played baseball together many moons ago, back when we were flexible and spry. So he's going to talk to us a little bit today about marketing, but also social media and all sorts of things, algorithms. So introduce yourself, though. Talk about your company and all that.
Yeah, I'm not much for big bios, but Kevin Berry. I have a small marketing agency, Marketing Stable. Do a little bit of everything for small businesses, do websites, logo design, social media, digital advertising, even design of kind of normal print ads. But today we're talking about social media and that big topic.
I want you to break down some of those phrases, though, for everybody, because I think they get confused a lot of times. I know I didn't know much when I first came into this. When we reconnected, like we've always been friends and talked and stuff from time to time, but when we reconnected officially in, I don't know, 2019-ish, we were talking about a whole bunch of different things and different topics and different purposes and whatnot. And even though my undergrad is in public relations, which I define as the like free exposure, and you can't really quantify it. Then there's like marketing, which is like when you like brand something, I think. And then there's like advertising, where you pay to send something to someone's house and like, it's a coupon or something. But I still can't really delineate some of those terms that you just used. So please share what that means and why they're important and why someone would hire you.
To me, I loop them all under the marketing umbrella. You have branding, which is logo design, your brand colors, what your brand stands for, all of those things. Advertise, yes, is usually paid efforts to distribute your message or content out there. Social media is kind of taking the PR, they call it content marketing, where it's free marketing, where you're educating your audience about what you do and providing value to them. And then they in turn trust you as a brand and come to you for services when they're in the market for them. But yeah, I think even marketers don't know the exact lines of branding, advertising. The one thing I say is it's not sales. Sales is kind of forced and pushy and jumps into your email box or unwanted. And it's not that. It's a long-term investment. It takes a little bit of time to kind of build your credibility and brand awareness and all of those things.
Yeah, just for the listening audience, you may wonder, why are we talking to the marketing guy? Well, a lot of it has to do with mental health. And then there's a crossover in the communities of firearms culture, which includes the big boy, brands, the manufacturers, the retailers, all the way down to the wholesalers, all the way down to the individuals who consume those products, but then they themselves have brands also. That would be your instructors, your local shops, retail stores, ranges. And then us, we're included in that. And then there's a crossover, right? And we'll talk, I definitely want to get into the effects of marketing. But I want to hover here for a second and explore a little bit of like how hard it is these days, because everything's always changing, right? And it's very, I don't know if nebulous is the right word, because a nebula, does shift a lot, but it's almost, I'm envisioning it more like a fog. it's like there's this fog and it all kind of falls under the umbrella of marketing and you just go, it's like some market force blows into the fog and all of a sudden it's like the thing you thought worked yesterday doesn't work today. And that's been a real frustration for you, I know for sure, but for us broadly who use those services, we're like, what's the algorithm doing today? And so explain a little bit about that too, if you would.
Yeah, it's hard because marketing, the core principles have always been around. And one of my pet peeves is when some of my fellow professionals will throw in some fancy buzzword and it's really some core marketing principle that's been around forever, but they're just trying to make it their own and make a profit off of that. But yeah, the platforms are always changing on how we distribute our marketing content. You mentioned the algorithms. The algorithms are changing, who knows, monthly, weekly. They're always being tinkered by the social media platforms, and each social media platform has multiple algorithms. An algorithm, to kind of start from scratch and a baseline,
Please. Yeah.
is how a social media platform design collects kind of information about yourself and decides what content to deliver to you. So it does that by what are
Don
you
Cheadle.
looking? What's that?
Don Cheadle. Algae rhythm. Yeah.
It does that by collecting information on what are you watching. Are you looking at the video for 5-10 seconds that's shown to you, or do you just scroll quickly past it? Are you liking or commenting on a post? So it's building kind of a portfolio of your interest and what you're likely to engage with. And why does a platform want to do that? Because unfortunately, in today's world, the social media platforms are paid for by the advertisers like myself, not the users. So the social media platform's end goal is to keep you on platform or to have you come on back on platform and keep you there. And it's going to show you the content you most engage with most. And that's kind of where we're going with this conversation of marketing and all of that. It broadly isn't really maybe the best fit for this audience, but the algorithms, the effects on mental health is a perfect fit.
There was a time when before I got involved in Twitter, which is just in the last 2 years. I've had my account forever, but in the last couple of years, I've really gotten involved in Twitter. And when you and I had this conversation a while ago, I started paying attention to my Google News feed because I have an Android phone and it's it's Google driven. It's a Pixel, and so if you on your home screen you just like swipe to the right from the left. I still don't know what swipe right, swipe left is it from or to. It'll pop up the Google News feed, and it was full of a bunch of stuff where I was like, how does it know? And then we talked, and you explained this to me, and I said, oh, okay. But then you can modify that by saying, I don't like this, I do like this. And every time you click something, it learns, right? So I started out to purposely craft my newsfeed to see if I could tweak the algorithm, and I succeeded. And I didn't want politics. I didn't want any sports, which was interesting because I paid enough attention to sports elsewhere. I wanted to grab some really obscure things. So I went with space and kind of space science, astronomy, and so forth. And I went with geography. And so I purposely did, and animals, like wild animals, that kind of stuff. So nature focused, and lo and behold, it worked. But then every once in a while, it would tease me with something. It was like, hey, look at this celebrity thing going on in Hollywood. And I'm like, nope, definitely not. No, I would keep voting those down, but it would keep shoving them in my feed. Why?
Marketing is a science experiment. It's a mix between science and art. So we're always testing what works because, like you said earlier, everything's kind of always changing and moving. Is your interest still in that? Here's a popular interest in your demographic. Is this going to tempt you and like it? No? Okay, we'll try it again later or try something else. So
Okay.
it's always kind of tinkering and throwing a random test kind of every once in a while to see, hey, we think you might like this. Do you?
Yeah, but it never actually permanently stays there.
Not if you don't engage.
Right.
So if you kind of dive in and like or watch the video that it thinks you might enjoy that isn't in your kind of main feed that you've created, oh, Jake liked that. We're going to show him another video. Is this, oh, now it becomes part of your feed.
Mike wants to jump in real quick, but I want to like make sure that I'm tracking correctly. When Pandora created its music genome project, that was essentially an algorithm, right? The thumbs up and the thumbs down on the tracks. And if you don't do anything, it's just going to keep throwing stuff in there. That's why, like on your country station, you might randomly have like Michael Jackson show up. And it's like, well, we didn't know. we're waiting for you to give us feedback.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's going to be like, okay, country is what you're looking for. What kind of age or what
Right,
timeline?
totally,
Okay,
totally.
older country, modern. Oh, modern country. Okay, we'll do more here. Is it more big name artists, lesser kind of
Correct.
deep dives?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kevin, I have a question. We all been there where we talk amongst each other in a room and we say something, and then all of a sudden on your social media, you're getting an ad for it. Like, what is that?
Oh boy,
Passive
I knew we'd
listening.
get into this eventually. So what I try to do when speaking on this topic in podcast is try to draw a line of what we know and what we kind of can assume. Facebook has gotten into some trouble and some things that they know, like there's the Facebook pixel, which goes into a website and it knows visitors, and then it can then target people for ads. And then there's interest of, like, I was looking at a new truck and I already have ads from multiple brands. And that's kind of the, how does it work? Because, all right, if I go to Ford website, all right, the Facebook pixel picks that up. But how does Chevy and all of that know? But what they've found is just having the Facebook app and everything's so interconnected, it knows, hey, this person's actively searching for X or
It's probably an
trucks.
image at this point. It's probably not even linked to the URL, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I searched it out in Google, so it knows that I'm actively searching. But yeah, that would also
It's
be
like I guess what I'm saying is like what images are coming across your feed.
just
So it's like an
other
image scan.
competitors' trucks.
Right,
Here's our
exactly.
offer. Exactly.
Yep.
They know I'm potentially in the market, and hey, here's what we have to offer.
And we know Amazon sells its stuff because you search on something on Amazon, if your accounts are linked, the next thing that's showing up on your Google feed is that product, right? In the article that you clicked on in the New York Times or whatever, it's like got the embed, and you're like, how does it know that I was looking for Wildcrat stuff? It's like, well, because Amazon sold to the whatever it is.
That's kind of in the unknown category too, but having the Facebook app gives it access to your activity not on the app.
I
and
don't
a
have
lot of
Facebook.
huh
I don't have a Facebook app though. That's the creepy thing. Like it's like I'm stripped down. It's Twitter, Instagram, which I guess is Facebook,
Mhm.
Amazon. That's basically all I go to.
Yeah, no, they're definitely selling data, and who's the biggest culprit? That's the kind of unknown. That veil hasn't been lifted of, hey, here's what
But what
going.
about the microphone, like Mike was talking about?
Yes, that is a thing of you can actually download your data on social medias and Google, and it will show some of the voice recordings that are picked up from
Wow.
Alexa and different stuff like that. So you'll notice the creepy device, the light will light up when you're talking, but not even talking to Alexa, say, and it is listening. How much are they using? That's into the unknown and all of that as well.
The weirdest experience I had with that was I don't hunt except when asked, right? And I had a lunch at Beefy's. We all love Beefy's. And I had lunch with a buddy, and we were talking about his hunting trip, and I said the phrase upland game, which does not come out of my mouth ever. And sure enough, on my news feed, upland game articles started showing up from 3 months ago, 2 weeks ago. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I never typed it anywhere. I never searched. I never scrolled. I didn't go to the Nevada Division of Wildlife website. Upland game popped up, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And my mic is shut off. I don't have the voice recognition. I don't use it. I'm old school, first of all, but I'm also suspicious.
Yeah, it'll be interesting 5-10 years down the road if that veil of what they're actually doing and collecting comes into kind of transparency of what were we right on, what were we wrong but close
Yeah.
on.
And to whom it gets sold too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah, it's funny because everybody in the gun industry is so like, we have to, stay anonymous and I don't want anybody tracking me and all this stuff. And everyone in the gun industry is literally on all platforms.
Yeah.
with their
With their smartwatch that's calibrating their health vitals and yeah. So privacy is an illusion. Can we agree on that? Like it doesn't matter how many ducks you go or ducks you ducked along the going.
Yeah, in my opinion on cybersecurity is if the right person wants to get something, they're gonna get it, unfortunately, in today's world. Obviously being a low profile, small fish in a giant ocean really helps, but I mean, we see huge corporations and big time companies get hacked and a lot of data leaks and all of that.
So if we're wanting to, whoops, good audio when you just make noises with the pens. So if we're wanting to avoid mistakes, hacking, I work in the healthcare realm. It's, HIPAA compliance. It's 2 A's, 1 P, by the way. HIPAA compliance is a big deal. The best we can do is the best we can do. There is no such thing as foolproof. And if you want to avoid litigation and losing your license, you want to be able to articulate what you did to prevent it, not that you can prevent it.
Exactly.
That's a terrible way to live, but I think some of the Luddites in our profession would say, file cabinet. It's like, yeah, there's a way into that too. So like, I guess across time, if somebody wanted to access something, they could. It's just easier now to get things in bulk because they're all housed in one location. And there's always a way to, around the lock if you don't have the key.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that it's weird for us. This is the first time having somebody in studio for like a year. So I'm like constantly checking the screen to see if Mike's chiming in.
Now I'll just cut in. Don't worry.
Yeah, please do. Please do. All right. So let's shift gears into some of this addictive algorithm, tunnel vision kind of thing going on. So you've described pretty well what an algorithm does. It learns from you. Can we call this AI?
I would say not quite yet. It's close. Algorithms are still designed by humans of how it's weighted. So it's designed and then the algorithms kind of go out and execute based off the human input. So my view of AI is kind of artificial intelligence taking place of that human and just kind of doing it itself.
It acts on its own.
Correct.
Without command. Okay. So if the algorithm, I just want to birdwalk this for a second. If the algorithm on, say, Twitter that's pulling from all the people I interact with and forcing them into my feed decides without being told by a human programmer that I need some other exposure, that would be artificial intelligence.
I think that's another gray line of where we're kind of walking into with AI. AI is definitely given guidelines of here's your job and execute it with human-like intelligence. Now, are those algorithms to that capability yet? Who knows? They're getting closer.
Yeah. So anyway, we've got this feed cultivated. It doesn't matter if it's a news feed or your followers feed or whatever it is, but it's cultivated to you and it knows your likes. And YouTube was accused of this. I don't know if they still are because I don't follow this stuff like you might, where it takes you on a path that could be sinister, right? It makes conclusionary leaps and then things can get very dark. They can get very serious. They could get very narrow. And if you're an adult watching this, all you know is what I'm now explaining a little bit of neurology. Your brain is saying, oh, I like this. This is me. This is comfortable. This is home. If you're a child, it does the same thing, but adults are supposed to know the difference between what's good for them, how to limit themselves, and children do not. So as these algorithms continue to feed you what you think you want, we flirt with echo chambers, right? And then it becomes addictive because we're constantly getting that fix. It's like dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, adrenaline, and you can't get out of it.
Let's take a side step back.
Please.
Think of it like you're going to a buffet and the algorithms are going to give you food that it thinks a majority of people really like. So here's a cheeseburger, here's a pizza, here's pasta. Are those the healthiest choices for you? No, but majority of people like it. So TikTok's a great example because it's kind of young and the algorithms are trying to broadcast a lot of content out to people. So here's a pretty girl, here's a attractive guy, the kind of normal top, I guess, addictive or appealing content for the masses. And then it kind of hones in from there. So if you're engaging or watching those videos for a long period of time, it's going to show you more of that. So then your diet becomes junk food and you don't even make it to the salad bar.
You ignore the pasta because you don't like pasta. You stick on pizza and cheeseburgers, and then it's like it'll offer you a cheeseburger with lettuce. And if you don't take that, it'll cheeseburger, lettuce, and tomato. Cheeseburger, tomato without the lettuce. Pizza, pepperoni, no. Like it just refines and refines and refines. And the more time you spend on it, the more content you see, the more refined it'll get.
Exactly. Yeah. And the last podcast on Noggin Notes, we kind of talked about how to create a healthy feed of you have to almost step out of it's giving you these junk food options that are so easy to just take and like and engage with. You got to knowingly go, no, I don't want more of this. I want nice scenery, travel content, and actively engage with content that is healthier for you.
It's amazing to me. And I want to ask you guys if you have this experience. I don't have the gratuitous, flashy women in bikinis anywhere on my profile, like anywhere. I had one bodybuilder friend who I've known for 20 years. And so some of her and her husband's pictures could look like that, right? But still today, if I click on the search icon, what shows up is, it's amazing. It has nothing to do with my feed. Nothing to do with my feed. But it's bikini clad women, dudes who are super swole, and a lot of baseball, which I don't follow a lot of baseball on Instagram. I love baseball, but it's not part of my channel. It's just not, I mean, it's just not. Austin Byler's on there. That's about it. A couple of teammates, but they don't post baseball stuff. I can't figure that out.
I think your Instagram, you haven't been as active, so it's trying to relearn and re-bring you back in with kind of common thing. Bikini clad women get a lot of people's attention, and that brings them back into the platform and down those kind of dark circle or spirals that you talk about. But yeah,
but for what purpose? Like who benefits from that? I just scroll past them. But I know that in scrolling past it, it's like a neutral, right? It's not a yes or a no, so it's going to keep showing it.
Yeah, I think
and it's been years.
Knowing your Instagram behavior and how long you're on it, you're a bad example because you're so
but this has been for years. I mean, this has been going on 4 or 5 years now. I can't.
It's pulling something loosely, and that's a lot into it. I don't think these platforms are so malicious and trying bad. They've just maybe had bad experience. A prime example is on Facebook. You know how there's the option to like, and then they added love, whatever, all the different emojis.
I haven't been there since 2014.
So in 2017, they added that, and they thought, oh, these will kind of enhance the thing. We're going to give 5 points in the algorithm for every 1 point of a like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what emoji was also in those new rollouts? The angry face of what pissed somebody off. So Facebook essentially just gave something that people are giving angry faces to 5 times the weight as something they're like. So they're going to show people.
That's how they got in trouble.
That was just one
mistake,
misstep.
right? Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that. That's crazy. He's not butting in.
Hey, listen. Go, Kevin. This is fascinating. I'm curious to see how this works. I mean, I've given up on social media pretty much personally, just because it just was a super time bandit. And then I found myself arguing and fighting with people that say outlandish things, that have a grasp of a 3-year-old's handshake on whatever the situations we're talking about. So, it's just fascinating to hear this and see how it works, because I don't usually think about it this deep. So, I love it. Keep
Time bandit is a good phrase, but you got teenage daughters though. And I'm curious what your experience has been with them and their social media use. I don't know if it's typical or not.
With my daughters, they're 14 and 16 years old. They look like they're 25, so there's always that kind of worry there. I've made it a point to always talk to them about social media and the harm that, I started early. I was showing them examples of nightmare things that could happen. The issue, I guess, with social media and children is, how do you monitor your kids if you give them a smartphone, right? Like, the best way to keep them away from bad things on social media is to not give them a smartphone. But as they get older, it just becomes the norm. So I communicated with them a lot. Unfortunately, there's so many different social media platforms that they could go to that I'm not on, and I can't monitor that all the time. So for me, it was a matter of just, being upfront with them, talking to them, trying to, make them understand that this is a place where it could be dangerous, and talk about these things that we're talking about, like how it affects your mental health and what it does. So,
Jeremy Elsmore, who's one of the Zephyr employees, is an intern of mine. He's a school counselor in Fernley. He and I do a presentation on social media and app, mobile device app safety. And part of the presentation is to shock parents out of their lull, their complacency of thinking the parental controls work, because they don't. They can be gotten around. VPNs can get around things. But then the other half is to encourage communication. I'm a family therapist. Like, this is what we do. We teach parents to communicate with their kids and create an environment in the home that's warm and safe and conducive to conversation, so that they don't have to go chase the alternatives, right? So kids are always going to have friends. That's fine. They're always going to get out of the home and talk to somebody who's not mom and dad. We understand that. We don't want to become their sole source of sustenance or social nourishment. And device-driven social interaction is so much easier than actually doing things with your friends down at the fill in the blank place, right? So it's become low-hanging fruit that gives the same neurological effect as being in person. And they don't know any different because they haven't experienced different. Now I've spent the last 2 years isolated, which is even worse, and it's compelled everybody into these devices. The interesting angle here is that, Mike, you bring up like monitoring them, right? Which sort of smells like, I want to control it, right? If we can. And the whole mission of Walk the Talk America is education over restriction. And if we really believe that to our core, then we would take that into our homes too, and teach our children well, to quote Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, so that we don't have to have the false sense of control over them, because we can't control it. We can't monitor everything. You just said that. It's true. You can't be on every app. And even if you could, what good would it do? It would wear you out, at bare minimum. So what we want to do is we want to educate. We want to teach them what these risks are. We want to teach them what the benefits are. We don't want to demonize it, because when we demonize things, we make them taboo, and taboo just piques curiosity, and it makes people want to go do more of the thing we don't want them to do. So I believe, I'm a big believer in transparency. I'm a big believer in autonomy. You guys know that. But I think the same principles apply. Education over restriction. Restriction is futility. So we teach people and then we go trust them.
Yeah, I'm interested how it goes as we have restrictions on highly addictive substances, and social media is one, and we
Yes,
have
it is.
no restrictions on it. I'm not saying that's the answer, but we're so far not even talking or educating about this topic, and not really giving it the time it needs. We're seeing kind of evidence of all the damage. Instagram's known to be incredibly damaging for especially young females, seeing models or even actresses that the image isn't real. It's heavily edited,
Mhm.
and the body that they're looking up to and trying to achieve isn't achievable. And you have so many things like that out there. I don't know, Jake, where would you compare it to addictive substances? You work with a lot of them.
The person who would be best to answer this in my realm, in my circle, is Paul Snyder. Paul has a little hierarchy of numbers, and I'm going to screw it up. But basically, if you ascribe a dopamine value to an item or an activity, We look at something like cheeseburger is a 12 and sex is a 38 and methamphetamine is 100. You don't have to work as hard for the methamphetamine. So you're going to go to that, and it gives you a much better reward. Social media is probably somewhere above sex, honestly, because it's instantly gratifying, it's customizable, and there's no effort. So why do people continue to choose destructive behaviors over productive ones? Well, the productive ones take work and they're less rewarding. So, if I compare cheeseburger to pizza, and in my dopamine, satisfaction level, pizza is a 17 and cheeseburger is a 12 or whatever I said it is, I'm going to go to the pizza, all things being equal. Now, if I have to make the pizza versus being served the cheeseburger, I'm going to go to the cheeseburger, because there's a plus minus, value in effort expended as well. So, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I want to go back to something that you said earlier, just a minute ago, about how nobody's talking about this. I disagree. I think a lot of people are talking about it, but it's not getting traction because it threatens the entire establishment of revenue generation for these companies. So you got the Center for Humane Technology, humanetech.org. They produced the documentary, The Social Dilemma. They have a great podcast called, shoot, I just lost the name of it. But check out humanetech.org. It'll come to me in a minute. I've listened to a bunch of them. That we are talking about. There's a researcher who has a great TED talk called, her name's Catherine Bouskill, Bouskill. She's got a TED talk on how human development over our 40,000 years of being in our current form as Homo sapiens simply has been outstripped by the advancement of technology the last 25 to 50 years. Our brains literally are not evolved enough to keep up with all the content being shoved into our noggins. It's causing us stress. It's causing us anxiety because we can't balance the information. And then I'll bring it back to me. What I teach with my emotional functioning is that shame and guilt are very important emotions. We have 10 emotions. You can watch the emotion stuff on the YouTube channel. The Zephyr website, the Zephyr YouTube channel. But shame and guilt are critical to maintaining a community. Shame says you fail to meet somebody's expectations. If you fail to meet the expectations of your community, your tribe, if you will, guilt says go make it right, because you don't want to get kicked out of the tribe, because evolutionarily we will die without our tribe. Okay, so there's an evolutionary component in our brain that compels us to make right with our tribe. The problem is, now that we're on social media, the quote unquote tribe is perceptively millions of people or thousands of people. It's like, you can't be in a tribe that big. We're not designed that way. We haven't evolved that way. We may never evolve that way, but if we do, it'll take another several hundred to 1,000 years to do so. And it's being dropped in front of our eyeballs as though we need to make right with all the tribe all the time, every day. It's like, that's not even your tribe. Those people don't care. They don't even know who you are. It's an anonymous avatar making fun of the post that you just made, and you are somehow compelled into believing that you need to go reconcile that with that person you don't even know, and it's keeping you up at night. That's not good. And our children are experiencing this. You're not supposed to be friends with the whole school. The school may be 800 people, it may be 2,500 people, 5,000 in some cases for high schools. And guess who's online? The whole school. But what did we do when we were kids growing up? We had a tribe of 12 to 25 people, and we worried about their opinions. So I am very concerned that not enough of this information is getting out and getting in the hands of parents, and the parents aren't digesting it because they're also distracted with their devices. And then they're not sitting down with their kids because their kids have devices in their hands. And we've lost the ability to be patient and intimate with each other so that we can be heard by our actual tribes, which is the nuclear family, the people surrounding the nuclear family, your teachers, your clergy, neighbors across the street. Because we're just so dazzled by Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and celebrity gossip has gone on forever, because it's fascinating to us, right? It's the pretty people with problems. They're not supposed to have problems. That's a psychological projection. That's another episode. But the idea is that we're now, everybody is famous on social media. Everybody is a celebrity on social media. Oh, they have thousands of followers. Like, yeah, they may have paid for them. They might even not even know those people. But the appearance of celebrity now has replaced the necessary interaction within our homes. And that's really concerning. So I do think people are talking about it. I don't think it's getting traction because it's not, it doesn't sell for sure. We in my profession are reactionary. When somebody has a problem, they show up. We literally are not paid to prevent illness. Insurance companies in mental health will not cover preventative care. They do it for everything else, dentistry and optometry and primary care and pediatrics. I mean, like, but so we're reactionary. We're acting when the problem lands in our doorstep. What if we can get in front of it? Well, then Facebook goes away. That's a multi-billion-dollar company. They can't afford to have that. They can't afford to put Jake Wiskerson or Catherine Buskill or Jonathan Haidt or the Humane Tech guys on a big giant platform. It might end them. There's no financial incentive there. So it's not sinister. I think it's just market dynamics and corporate greed, honestly.
And I think you made a good point about a key aspect of your presentation that you gave. You started with the shock and awe that kind of makes people perk up and listen. So many
And that's
people,
intentional. It's a limbic function, interest.
yeah, so many people, when I say social media and personal finance should be in every high school and talk about these things, people get on, we know social media. What are you talking about?
Yeah, except they don't.
No, they don't. They don't know, oh,
They're-
you have a new friend request. Oh, you accept that? Their person's now at the top of your feed. So be careful who you're accepting, all the different kind of inner workings of how the algorithm delivers you content that in return affects your kind of mood and your thinking and probably your livelihood in that kind of, if you get stuck in the vicious circle of negativity or other stuff.
So gun culture. Gun culture on social media. Mike, it's no secret that we've had some frustrations with our own community for a variety of reasons. Share a little bit about what you're seeing with the gun community on social media, and then behind the scenes, what people are saying about this algorithm stuff and how it may or may not be affecting what we do and how we do it.
I've always thought that on social media, like gun culture is a very toxic place. And the reason why I jumped to that conclusion is because when I would try to talk to people that may be interested in becoming part of the community, I remember I would, I'd kind of assess them and say like, okay, I want them to go check out this person's profile, right? Whether that be Colleen Noir or Rob Pincus or something like that. And I remember a ton of times, right? It's all anecdotal, but like the person coming back to me and going, yeah, I can't do this. Like I was reading the comments. This is way too toxic in there, right? So I felt like it's a tough space for gun owners, especially ones that just want to enjoy firearms, right? Because I think that everything becomes political in there, and you start getting everybody's ideas on things that have nothing to do with gun culture and the community, right? Like you'll see attacks on liberals. I don't know how you avoid that, right? Because a lot of the legislation comes from that side, but not all liberals, as we know, like the Liberal Gun Club and liberal gun owners are anti-gun, right? But where's a spot for them to like come into comments and talk to people or enjoy that, when you're getting trashed, and that's how you identify. So I think it's a very toxic place. And I don't see, we had talked about this before the show happened. You never see the big companies getting involved, and I know probably why they can't, because they have to stay neutral. But I think that that's more of a safe space for people to go. Like when you go to like Ruger's website or you go to their Instagram page, right, and you see their new firearm, that becomes less political. So you can kind of jump in there, and that's a more comfortable space to be in. But I just think of it as a negative. I mean, it's a gift and a curse, man. Like, you want to send people into the culture and have them learn, but at the same time, you send them to places where they're just going to get really bad information or just angry people. And I mean, look what we go through, Jake and Kevin, right? You know this. Like every time we post something, we always end up having a discussion about how people are going to take this the wrong way. When you have guns and mental health in the same phrase, there becomes a jump to conclusions, Matt, that we're for restriction. And that always happens. So you have one guy who ruins the whole thing because he just like says it. And then that, that comment becomes like the billboard for it. We know it's there. It bugs us. It works on our mental health that, and then other people read it and that becomes an issue. So, Kevin, I mean, we, as someone who didn't come in, you came into this through marketing and you didn't come from the gun community, and you've been learning, over the past year and a half, or, your thoughts on it are always fascinating to me because it gives me a different perspective.
I mean, my view is, I think it's normal. Look at what the news feeds are doing. There's highly controversial and dividing topics in the news, and those comment wars in them are just the same as what happens when we make a post. And it's part to do with the algorithms, because what are they training people to do? Engage and comment. And it's going to show you more of the stuff that you're going to engage and comment. Now, the platforms have their issues with the algorithms delivering it, but people on my side of the world are also in charge of making clickbaity headlines that get people to engage in that way. So then your content delivers more to them, and your reach, which is how many people you reach per post, increases as well. So I think it's not just a gun culture problem in that sense. But yeah, I think we're also trying to have a conversation and on a really kind of tough topic, like you said, guns and mental health, on a kind of a short content format of Twitter's 280 characters or whatever it is now. And there's not a lot of room to have a conversation. It's name calling at short form, just kind of interactions back and forth. It's not really a great platform to have the conversations we're trying to have. And it is challenging. We try to boost the content to get more distribution of conversations like this and really good content to get out to people. But people are just reacting initially what they think it might be, instead of taking the time to actually see what it actually is. And then, yeah, Jake's right. Those one or two comments that stick with us are so negative, and we try to avoid it, but you just gotta keep going. I think the gun community, from my perspective, needs a hell of a lot better job of marketing and kind of coming out with their side of the things from their view, instead of always being on the defense of no, not this. And then you have the people that just see the pry up from my cold dead arms kind of crowd, and then that's what they associate gun owners with. And okay, that's a percentage of the population, but that's not an accurate representation of all gun owners.
It's tough because whenever you take a stand for something, you're going to incur blowback by people who can't articulate their own position and be comfortable with it, so they have to bully others into destroying that, right? So that's bullying 101. When a kid doesn't feel good about himself, he's going to tear down somebody else instead of building himself up. We see this in adults, we see it in ideologies, we see it in politics, we see it in religions. So I think I have the answer, or at least an answer, but it requires self-exploration, which we know not everybody's going to do, and it requires humility, but mostly it requires patience and an ability to stave off the desire for instant gratification. So over my Twitter experience, I haven't been perfect at it, but what I've learned to do is operate from my forward brain, my logic brain, and not let limbic drive. And as you know, if I believe what's coming out of my mouth when I teach this emotional functioning stuff, I should probably practice what I preach. So I recognize my emotion when somebody says some dumb thing in response to a comment that I post. That's, it's very, very, usually they're very centrist, very neutral, or they provoke thought. And people don't necessarily like that because they've got their own ideologies staked out, right? Okay, so let's say I say something, somebody says some dumb thing, and I go, yeah, there's the limbic response, right? Whatever it is, the snark, the condescension, the anger, the whatever it is. I go, all right, what am I feeling and why am I feeling it? How best can I respond? And I remember my training, in large part due to Christian Conte, loving kindness. Lead with loving kindness. Teach someone something. And also remember that you're not writing to that person. You're almost never writing that person, because if that person's going to say something that in an attacking way in a comment section, they're not interested in changing their mind. But I am writing to all the other eyeballs who are watching the engagement. So I act out of my frontal lobe and I say something intelligent in response, set a good boundary, reestablish my own position, engage one or two times most. Kevin Dixie taught me that. And then be done with it. And they can keep going on and ranting and quote tweeting and tagging people. And it's like, I'm still not going to engage you. I also don't, I think I've muted one conversation my whole time on Twitter. I don't block anyone, which is very rare. I know we suggest blocking and muting, that's fine. But for me, if I'm going to practice what I preach, which is openness, transparency, engagement, and oh, by the way, that people can, the belief that people can change, right? I don't ever want to shut anybody out. I always want to leave a door for them to come back around if they do change their mind. I don't want to just block people, because I believe it's incumbent upon me to be able to tolerate their nastiness or their rancor or whatever it is with a modicum of peace and tranquility that I expect from others. So I just walk away, and it's worked. It's worked really, really well. However, I'm also open to learning, because I know I don't know everything. So even though that person may say something nasty, they may have something nasty to say behind it that they just can't articulate in a polite way. So I'm also paying attention to that. Now, I believe that if we all started doing a little bit more of this, we act from our logic zones, we act from our frontal lobe, but recognize the limbic that's been triggered. Don't take it personally. Set good boundaries and say that's not appropriate, but I will still continue to engage you because I'm not engaging you, I'm engaging other people, and I want to improve my reputation. I think we can move conversation forward. The problem is it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't feed the clickbait. It's not headlineable if I'm being reasonable. And that doesn't trigger the limbic system, which then drives ads and clicks.
I'm going to push back a little, not
Sure.
because you're wrong, but because you're a trained professional literally teaching emotional functioning.
Totally.
And not everybody's on that page.
I'm just saying it's possible.
Right. It absolutely is possible, and everybody can improve in that way. I don't use blocking to the extent that some people in I know marketing Twitter use it, and with have hundreds of people blocked. I have maybe 14 people blocked, mostly
Spam.
just trolls that just are coming at you for no good. I use muting a lot of just topics that I want to shelter out of: politics, sports. So I have two Twitter profiles to separate my interests. Of one is professional marketing, kind of learning that, and then I have my normal profile that's a lot of sports. But on my professional one, politics, sports, all those terms are muted, just so I'm kind of creating the feed that I want, and it's helping me create that feed.
So muting will craft a feed too then, huh?
Muting just takes that word, whatever. So if I'm muting baseball, any tweet with
I didn't
baseball,
know you could do that. I thought you could just mute conversations and mute accounts. I didn't know you could mute phrases.
You can mute, yes, phrases,
Well, that's
keywords,
cool.
hashtags. That's how I mainly use it. Of this is what I want my feed to be. I don't want this anywhere near it.
Oh, that's cool. I got to look into that.
So yeah,
So yeah, that comes with the danger too. You create your own echo chamber, right?
it does. Yeah, that's why I have multiple, the other profile, to get out of that, and also helps me
But
create.
you're aware of it,
Yes.
and you're a professional. So if we can invite people to be aware of why they do what they do, which is my favorite word, which is intentionality, know why you do what you do, then you can purposely craft your own echo chamber. Like, when I want to learn about Jesus, I go to church, but then I leave church. I don't stay there and live there, and that's all I know, right? If I want to learn therapy, I come to the office. So that makes sense.
And it also helps me create kind of a better work-life balance of, I have my phone that I can probably do 50-75% of my job anywhere at all times, and that's a blessing and a curse. So it helps me kind of be like, all right, this is my work profile. Oh, I was just on vacation last week, I failed, I checked stuff, I succumbed to, I can get that done in 2 minutes. Not the best, but it also helped me. I have my other profile that's just personal interest, to try to create that barrier there.
That's really good. I think I need to entertain that, because there's so many times I'm in the kitchen after hours scrolling things that are interests, but then I get drawn by other interests that I don't want to be involved in at that particular hour. Like I might be looking up, who the Giants are playing and checking out whether or not my fantasy lineup is, in play, but then a notification pops up from something I'm not in. I don't want to be talking about politics at that time. I don't want to be seeing news of the, pandemic or whatever. That's a great idea to separate things out, and then I'm in control, right? Rather than it controlling me.
Exactly. Take control of what you want social media to be. Social media platforms are always going to tempt you with the junk food.
Yeah.
But all right, we're blocking cheeseburgers, we're muting all the
Yeah.
junk food, and we're actively engaging, not because we really love that scenery of a lake mountain picture, but I want to see more of that. So I'm going to knowingly like that. So more of it comes up on the feed.
No, Your Undivided Attention is the name of the podcast, by the way, from Center for Humane Technology. I knew it would come to me.
Better
Your
come back.
Undivided Attention. It's outstanding. It's exceptional. It's everything that the movie was based on, but in longer form, hour and a half. So the movie itself was like an hour and a half or something. But now imagine, 40 podcasts of an hour and a half. That's the content of the movie. You want to get deeper into it, listen to those podcasts.
Is that the Social Dilemma?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start and learn about what's actually going on. I wish they would have brought maybe a little bit more of here's the light at the end of the tunnel, not so into the
Well,
the
I think,
darkness.
I think the light at the end of the tunnel has to be the individual.
Absolutely.
We can't rely on it changing, whatever it is, right? It's us taking charge of our own lives and saying, I
Yeah.
don't need this anymore. I need my tribe to be a couple dozen, not a couple thousand.
Yeah, and I mean, good. I don't know what Android has. They probably have something, but screen time, limiting your time on apps can certainly help. I have mine as a social media professional for like 15 minutes. I knowingly have to approve myself to get more time. So it stops the just endless scrolling of whatever, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it may be. Circling it back to the gun culture a little bit, I know we wanted to talk on this. There are some legitimate gripes of, for example, Walk the Talk America did the advanced training course where mental health professionals got to shoot a variety of firearms. We wanted to broadcast that to our audience and potential people that would find that content enjoyable. And we used both Facebook and Instagram. Forget which one. The Facebook ad got rejected. Okay, what got rejected in it? I go to the Instagram. My best guess is it's targeting keywords of all the firearms that we mentioned. Let's see if I can delete all of those. Instagram got approved. So it's centering based off keywords. I also have a casino client. If we're trying to promote a jackpot, don't use jackpot or the money in the description of the post, because that's going to get shut down because Facebook doesn't want to be a part of the gambling industry.
It's amazing what these companies are doing with regard to their sanctimony, right? The self-appointed moral superiority over what they believe people should be ingesting, because they have zero problem with pornography on Twitter, for example. You find all the porn you want on Twitter, but you better not talk about COVID vaccine debates. It's like, who's making that decision and why? And I don't think there's a nefarious bag of money behind it. I think it's just individuals individually designing things and making decisions at board meetings that say, this is okay, this is not okay. And I don't know why or how. Maybe it's political, maybe it's personal. I have no idea. But you talk about gambling is legal in all 50 states now, like in some form or another, whether it's the lottery or it's sports betting or it's actual brick and mortar casinos with little spinny machines and dazzling, progressive lights. And yet our major social media platforms are shutting down promotion of that. Like, where do they get off? Like, where do you get off? The right to own a gun and defend oneself as one sees fit is immutable across all time. Governments try to prevent that from happening, which makes our government so different. Is like, oh, we're actually going to be a government that preserves rights, not restricts them. And yet you got companies that are like, nope, we disagree. Like, what? That's like disagreeing with, I don't know, Coumadin. We just don't think people should be thinning their bloods. It's like, what?
Yeah, I think that'll be the next conversation of the generation of censorship versus misinformation and all of that. I can
Well, we
see
have a
where
ministry of truth now.
not to dive into that rabbit hole.
No.
But going back to it, I could see Facebook with all the legal and not wanting, oh, if we're responsible and tied to a gun sale that maybe does something that could make them nervous. Maybe they're not educated or something like that. I could see a positive kind of good intentions route to where they started. And I don't,
Yeah, but I don't, because they don't do that with anything else. They don't do that with vehicles.
They don't do it with cars. I was
They
about
don't,
to say.
they don't do it with medical professionals, which kill more people by accident than anything else in America. Medical accidents are the number one preventable killer. Like, you know, we can debate preventable, but they're not suppressing doctors opining on the next treatment. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I think that's where gun culture has a weakness is
Yeah.
they're very in their own echo chamber, and it's kind of like entering I don't even know, not Fight Club. Fight Club's a bad example, but once you get into the gun culture, then the veil is kind of you understand it more. But from outside, holy cow,
Yeah,
does
they've
it
done a
look
terrible job of
scary and
marketing. Yep.
it's intimidating? And how can't you agree with those things knowing nothing about the
Well, they've given over the narrative to the people with the bullhorns who
exactly
don't align with the gun culture's principles.
exactly
And that's their own fault. And that's what Mike and I battle regularly with, like trying to get support for WTTA. We're like, hey, manufacturer X of big giant product that everybody knows, isn't this a good idea? Wouldn't you like to put our free anonymous mental health screening on your box? And they're like, yeah, I don't know, man. If we start to acknowledge there's a problem, then people could blame us for it. And you're like, they already are.
Are you blaming you? Yeah.
They already are. Why are you handing the microphone over so willingly? We're giving you an opportunity to take the mic back, Kanye, and you're rejecting it. You're rejecting that over. Like, it's nonsensical to me. So, quote unquote, both sides are doing it. Like, one is afraid to engage to learn more because it might have its mind changed, and the other's afraid to engage to learn more because it might have its mind changed.
yeah, it's a dilemma in itself. I know Walk the Talk's gotten into some just conversations where people don't agree, where we just the screening data, we don't get specific demographics, or we get wide demographics, but we don't have tracking to individual or anything like that. And we just put out a statistic of how many people tested. What's the correct verbiage? Tested
Screened for above what are the rankings? Severe and extreme.
moderate to severe or something.
Yeah, moderate to extreme. So there's 4 levels, I think, of mild, moderate, severe, and extreme. And moderate to extreme was 69% of screeners. 69% of screeners got a result of moderate to extreme anxiety of those who came through our website. And we could loosely say that the people come to our website are probably gun owners. So, you know, we could loosely draw a conclusion that says 69% of gun owners probably have some level of uncomfortable anxiety.
Yeah, everybody goes to the defense of how it could be used negatively, but compared to the average population non-gun owner, I don't think that statistic would be drastically different. It should be a positive that, hey, gun owners were interested in taking this test at all and
Right.
not twisted into some negative agenda, because it probably wouldn't hold up when you look at, oh, maybe 72% of the average non-gun owner would test positive. That's not a big demonizing statistic.
Yeah. And our whole point is to make people aware of their struggles so that they go get help. It doesn't help when Captain Gun Guy in his, you know, battle dress uniform and his you know, chest rig is spouting some stupid stuff on social media saying you're telling people that they're going to have their guns taken away because they're mentally ill, and you just advertise the gun owners are mentally ill and this is stupid and you should go away. It's like, yeah, way to like double down on the narrative that already exists, bro. Like, it just doesn't
Captain Gun Guy is the same guy too. That says something needs to be done about suicides in the military. You know, like it it's that's what I can't stand about social media, is that people will shoot down these things. They just offer problems. They don't offer any solutions to it. So they don't say like, hey, we don't like what you're doing. This is what we think should be done. It's just do nothing, but let's just complain about it. And I think that, you know, I guess my thing with Walk Talk America, the way I look at it is we took the tough road, right? The easy road would have been just to kind of beat the drum, say the buzzwords that everybody wants to hear, right? From the Cold Dead Hands, whatever, you know, and it just becomes a bigger challenge for us to get people to listen. When we get the people to listen, though, it's really cool, right? Because they get it and they see it. But just those loud, I mean, look at the issue we had with the Gun Collective, right? What they did to us when we went to go speak in San Jose State. We've addressed this before on the shows, but you know, they kind of just threw something out there to get people talking, and then we got bombed on. They didn't realize that we were going to take the time to address every comment individually, which gave us an opportunity. But what if we didn't have time to do that? What if we didn't have, you don't have the energy to do that? You know, that's a lot of misinformation. So,
Well, you know, and circle it back to this is a form of bullying 101. Instead of building something up, you tear the other thing down. And why do people do that? Well, fundamentally, it's insecurity. And where does insecurity come from? Lack of connectivity. If you don't connect with other people, if you don't have intimate, warm, welcoming relationships with other human beings, then you don't know who you are. All you know is what you're against. And so you tear down, you deconstruct, you destroy, you don't create and build up and edify. So how do you combat this? Unplug from the broad, giant perception of community being all people and hone back in on what really matters. Get back to your families, focus in on your friends, take care for your coworkers and your employees, and really recenter, like delay gratification, turn off stimulus for a while, and be at peace, right? Then you see something you don't agree with. You don't have to go reflexively opposing it out of emotionality. You can take the time to go back to your tribe and go, hey guys, I just saw this thing. What do you think? And then they might give you some information that says, I got to reconsider this. Chances are really strong that, you know, Captain Loudmouth on whatever side of the issue of whatever the issue is, doesn't do that. They don't first go check with people in their own tribe because they have conditioned themselves not to. And the dopamine hits that they get from all the likes and the retweets and the reposts and the quotes is satisfying neurologically their desire to fit in. The problem is they're not fitting in with the people who are retweeting and liking the thing because they don't know them. You got 260,000 followers. Great. Congratulations. How many of them do you know?
That's a huge problem with social media. The winner of the argument perceptionally isn't the one that often had the best ideas and
No.
presented their case the best. It's how many of their followers or got on and supported them. It
Right.
doesn't mean they were right. It just, but that's how people take it of, oh, well, I got 50 likes. Your comment only got 5. So my comment was better. No, you have a bigger audience.
Which is why it's super, super, super important that when you get dragged into those things and somebody unleashes their hounds on you, you don't reflexively act again out of in response to their emotional attack, right? With one of your own. Christian Conti has this thing called be the couch. So if you picture, we've all played sports. Picture holding the ball in your hand. It's a rubber ball. Doesn't matter what it is. Lacrosse ball, racquetball, tennis ball. It's a rubber ball. Now you're standing in front of a brick wall, some, I don't know, 40 feet away, and you chuck the ball at that wall. What's going to happen? Non-rhetorical question requiring response, Kevin.
It's coming back.
Probably with the same energy with which you delivered it, right? Okay. Think of that ball as your emotional energy or just someone's emotional energy. When we throw that, the temptation is to send it right back with the same energy with which it was delivered. Anger, boom, my anger. Shame, boom, I'll shame you, right? Same thing. Okay, now imagine being a couch. You take that same ball and you throw it 40 feet across the room at a couch. What happens?
Should we try it?
We can. I mean, my room's about 40 feet.
It's going to deaden a little.
Yeah. And then what happens if you want to go back and pick it up and like throw it again? You have to walk all the way across the room, retreat back, fire it one more time. It's way more exhausting. But if you're just ping, 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 throwing emotional energy back and forth at each other, you're not solving any problem. All you're doing is limbic. But if you can be the couch and have confidence that you can take somebody's emotional firing, if you will, and go, well, I see that you're angry. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm going to absorb that because I can tolerate this. And if you want it, you're going to have to reload. And then they do it again and you do it again. I like, just be the couch. The argument ends. It has nowhere to go because you're not feeding into it with your own reflexive emotional energy. Do that on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram. And you stick with logic, stick with your point, give it two replies, no more. And then everybody watching goes, that was different.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. And I interviewed I have a small marketing podcast where I just interview fellow marketing people about their thoughts, professions, and learn from them. And a great piece of advice was assume positive intent. Every time we're up there with the wall bracing and expecting and assuming negative intent or kind of a, and not to say that
I mean, if they come out and call you a fuck stick,
no, there's trolls. This isn't a blanket
which
statement.
happened to me yesterday.
This isn't a blanket statement, as there's trolls, and yes, there are a lot of people who absolutely have negative intent, and you can see that. But first, try to assume they're coming at it with a positive statement. As one huge flaw of social media is we're getting text communication. We don't get to gather tone. We don't get body language. We can assume wrong and just interpret it and come back defensively when that wasn't needed at all. So tweak it and try assuming that they're coming at you with positive intent. Is that possible? Okay, no, it's a troll. All right.
Yeah.
Your area.
Yeah, and you'll know within 2 or 3 exchanges.
Exactly.
Which is why I think KD's point about 2 exchanges no more is warranted. Now, he doesn't limit himself to that. He does go longer if there's an actual discussion happening, which is, it bears merit. That I'm seeing now, it's like genuine question. And people lead with this, like, I'm genuinely asking, genuinely curious. It's like, man, we've gotten so bad at presuming malintent that we now have to lead with a statement that says, I'm not here to troll. It's crazy. And then, of course, people have taken that and twisted it into sarcasm.
And people like myself are using the engagement baiting. So they're asking a question. They don't give a shit about your response. They just want your engagement to boost their reach. So I'm genuinely curious. Having a conversation as a way to say, hey, I'm not some Facebook post that's asking you what's 2 + 2 and comment for a chance for $100. Everybody knows that, and they're getting trained to engage and comment.
Yeah.
It's, hey, I'm actually open to a conversation.
I sniffed that out recently with a couple accounts that I follow, and I was like, oh, that's what you're
We
about.
ran into it the other day with that guy that was genuinely asking a question, and you tagged me in to answer the question, and he was trying to sell us his book.
Yep. I was like, come on, man. Yeah.
I mean, I've been guilty of that though too. Like I'll see posts on Twitter and I'm like, hey, check out Walk to Talk America. Or like I just use that one thing because I look at it as like they're debating legislation and I'm like, okay, here's an alternative to that. Like there's some solutions out there, you know what I mean? But I don't really mean it in a malicious way. I want them to go check it out.
Yeah, but you're providing value there. That the instances we're talking about where they had a question, they didn't even respond of like, oh, that's a good point. Nothing. It's here's my book, buy it.
Yeah, your a thread on blah blah blah. It's like, wow, that's really thought provoking. That's really, and then like silence. It's like all you wanted was traction.
Yeah,
like come on, man. That's disingenuous. It was a good thread. I wanted to ping with you on that. Yeah, I've figured that out on a couple people. They're just there for themselves, and their thoughts are great. I'll read them, but I'm gonna stop engaging now because it's like, well, I wanted a dialogue, but you're clearly interested in just communicating one way. It's platform's not for a seminar.
Yeah. And I mean, the platforms definitely created that monster, but then we're using it to feed and please the algorithm monster by doing those low quality engagement baiting, clickbait, all of those techniques.
I will say though that there is a good output from the rational, reasonable, logical, analytical group. I think people are burned out, honestly. Like we're getting to the point where you still got, picture your standard distribution curve, like the people 3 standard deviations away from the mean on either side of any issue are still going to be there. I think for a while that end swelled. It was maybe, I don't know, 2016-ish to 2021-ish. It really swelled. The tail swelled and the middle shrunk. And in the last year to 18 months, the middle has grown probably larger than it ever has, because people are burned out. And the way that I think they're burned out is they're burned out limbically. There's just, we can't stay in a state of heightened awareness or hypersensitivity or hypervigilance for a long period of time, because the energy that it takes from the brain and from the body to maintain that level of vigilance is not sustainable. That's why people work in shifts. You know what I mean? Like, you have to go home and rest. But if every time you jump on, it's like screaming, fighting, screaming, look here, death, destruction, fear, you just eventually go, somebody somewhere has to be in the middle on this, right? Because I think I've been pushed away from the middle, and now I want to go back to the middle. And that's where like this loosely formed group called Team Reality is coming in on Twitter. They're like from all over the political spectra, and they agree that logic and conversation and civility need to reign. That's basically the fundamental truth. A lot of disaffected liberals, a lot of conservatives who have realized that they don't want to be dragged in or affiliated with QAnon. A lot of religious and atheistic people who are just like, look, we would just respect each other. We don't need to fight over this. And I think they're kind of coming to the terms with the idea that they were pushed into fighting each other from the war of the social media war of 2016, when we had all the Russian bots like purposely like pushing people wherever they were going, and then the American bots that were doing the same thing, and we're just worn out, and we want to be in the middle now, and we want to make middle decisions.
Well, and it makes sense of how we've talked about how social media is built. The two extremes are going to comment and continue to have the comment wars. The middle, if it was a bar and you walked in and people were fighting, you'd leave the bar.
Right.
The middle isn't participating in most of the conversations on Twitter.
They may be even
social.
saying, hey guys, stop fighting, right? And the fight continues, and they're like, screw you for infringing on my ability or my autonomy to fight. And you're like, but it's illegal. And so there's that going on too, where the middle's being accused of like doing the right thing, and it's somehow bad, which is weird, but it's happening.
Social media is drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
You're coming thirsty and you're like, oh, I'd like to consume a little bit of that. Oh, but
it's like when Mike sends these people to the gun community. I'm just looking to get a personal defense weapon. Here's Coley Noir's page.
Yeah, I talk about this all the time. One of the funny things that
homosexual, you're like, I just wanted a PDF.
No, but one time I remember Collins or Coley Noir was taking a beating over something that the NRA wasn't speaking out about, and we were texting each other, and he goes, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a poem up on social media on that I like, that has nothing to do with guns, and he goes, watch how quickly this spirals.
It's like Walt Whitman or something.
Yeah, and he put up some like poem or lyrics that he liked, and literally took 2 seconds in the comments for people to be like, yeah, and it's like, that had nothing to do. He was just doing an experiment. He's like, I want to show you like how difficult this is. You have to have thick skin if you're going to put yourself out there like that, because then you have your other people like Rob Pincus that they don't care. Like, they'll just throw something out there, and it's like, say whatever you want in the comments. Like,
how could you be talking about poetry at a time like this?
They just related it to gun stuff. It was just great. I mean, look at the other day, Jake, when we got involved in the Twitter feed where the instructor from the CCW instructor from Vegas had some inappropriate jokes at his class, and we were literally arguing with him, and we were also arguing with people that were on our side. Because it's like, we're like, hey, we're on your side. We're saying it is inappropriate. It shouldn't happen. He needs to take the L and move on. But it's like, we're getting it from everybody. It was crazy. The stuff that turned you off on it. You're just like, I can't go there anymore.
But I'm glad we did that, because what he did was despicable and it was indefensible. Like, I don't care what race or skin color you think you are, or maybe your crowd thinks you need to be, but you don't ever do that. And it doesn't belong in a concealed carry permit course. It just doesn't. Like if you want to address stereotypes and impulsive responses that where it's not appropriate to draw your firearm because you think the wrong thing about somebody based on their appearance, you don't need a stereotypical slide that jokes about stereotypes. You can say, hey, these things exist. Be aware of them in your own psyche. But if you're teaching 400 people like he's bragging about, you don't have time to go down the list of all the stereotypes anyway. Right. So like, unless you want to hire somebody like me to come in and teach the unconscious bias portion of your course, don't go there. Just stick to how to handle your gun. And he couldn't get it because he's this, self-appointed celebrity.
And then we were policing our own. We were
Yeah.
telling him that and saying, these are the type of things that are going to be used against us in the media. And then we had people that were agreed with us, that were arguing with us that it is what it is. And it's like, no, we even saw examples of it. Like the media picked up on the story.
Yep.
And they cut little pieces that would make people react.
Yep.
And,
They didn't
we're
tell
sitting
the
there
whole
arguing.
story.
Yeah. We're sitting there arguing with people that we agree with, it was a rabbit hole for sure.
Well, I'm going to assume positive intent and say that this strategy wasn't what he was going after, but a new strategy in the media and marketing is any engagement is positive. Even if it's very negative, you're still getting a ton of views of your brand, your person, whether it's personal brand, corporate brand, you're still getting your name out there. Even if a lot of people are saying something negative about you, you're going to reach people that.
Yeah, but my pushback on that philosophy, and you're not a stranger to this, and I know you don't agree with that philosophy, you're just saying that it's out there, is that's for people who are driven by ego and only want exposure, and or that is malintent because you're throwing your integrity out the window for the sake of exposure. I don't want to do that. I'd rather do this slow, and I've said this since we formed Zephyr Wellness. My eyeballs are on 20 years, not 2. I could have grown this thing very, very rapidly in a very short period of time, but we would have had to cut a lot of corners and maybe walk in some gray areas ethically and possibly legally. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the slow, steady route, and I'm going to do it very deliberately. And I'm going to take the sacrifice, the sacrificial hit financially. And that creates sustainability. That creates an anchored principle. Walk the Talk's doing it too. It would be so easy for us just to waltz into the middle of anywhere and be like, you know what we do? Guns and mental health. Let me tell you how that is good for you. And we can make it slick and flashy, and people would throw money at us. I guarantee it would happen. But without an infrastructure, without a foundation, without going through the wrestling match that, Mike and I and Rob principally have had over the last 3 years of our getting down to our real core principles, we would have fizzled out. And I see this in the mental health world with all these startup companies getting gazillions of dollars of seed money from venture capitalists or from grants from the government. And they open up their doors and they look flashy and fancy and they promise the moon and they don't deliver. They always burn out. It preceded this era of, pandemic response, and all that stuff. I watched it happen. The places that promise to be all things to all people always fold. Always. You have to start small. And again, I'll go back to instant gratification. Everybody looks at the long established company, whatever you just imagined is a long established company of high success, and they go, I want that next week. It's like you can't be Coca-Cola next week. You can't. It's too much. Coca-Cola started very, very, very small. So did 7-Eleven. So did Burger King and McDonald's, and like these large international corporations, they all started very, very small, and nobody wants to do it anymore. It's not pleasing. It's not satisfying. It doesn't satisfy the limbic brain.
Yeah, no, I'm unfortunately we are seeing that malintent strategy come back in. I mean, we saw, was it PBR with that tweet that got
yeah. It's like, dude, you're Paps. You've been around forever. You don't need to do that. Yeah. That was
Are we allowed to
Say it.
Wasn't it like this tweet, if you like eating ass?
Yeah, Pabst Blue Ribbon was something like, it had something to do with anal cunnilingus or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was funny, but it was absolutely despicable.
Paps
at
was
the same
drunk
time.
tweeting.
What's that?
Paps was drunk tweeting.
Paps was drunk tweeting. Oh man, and they got
Oh,
eaten alive.
not drinking this January, question mark. Try eating ass.
There it is. Yeah, it was dry. It was about dry January. Yeah, it's like, wow, man.
But is
I
that
mean-
an example of what Kevin was talking about? Like,
Yes.
draw
Yep.
any attention. Like, hey,
Yep.
you know, they're going to get picked up in the media. You know,
Exactly. And that's why I was not pushing back on Jake, because there's a lot of brands that are trying that aren't built, but now we're seeing big brands that are built
Yep.
utilizing that strategy just for the reach and
Everybody
going
wants to be Wendy's.
any attention is positive in the end, which I don't think's right in the good path, but we're seeing big brands do it. And then, yeah, it does have the trickle down. Well, Pabst did it, so let's try something similar. And it's not a good route. I mean, it's interesting where this is going to evolve, but we mentioned drinking from a fire hose, but that fire hose isn't just water. That's almost
Pabst.
like beer. Yeah, it's an
PBR.
addicting thing
Yeah.
that wants you to consume more.
Yeah, what is coming out of that hose? MDMA or something? Or
I was gonna go with whiskey, but that wouldn't work out too well. It's
Ooh, whiskey hose.
no, it would.
That's
be-
like when they're down in Mexico on spring break and they're blowing the whistle and shooting the plastic ball of tequila down your throat. If one is good, four must be four times as good. No. Well, all right. So in summation, I guess blow up your phone. No, don't do that. Be
This
mindful of
can-
social media. Try to dial back the stimulus and know why you do what you do and be patient. Avoid instant gratification. That's my exhortation to the audience.
Yeah, take a step back and plan what you want your social media feed to be, and then actively engage in that content. Or if it's too whatever addicting and tempting to you, remove yourself from it. If you had a problem with alcohol or another addictive substance, you try to remove yourself from it.
That's a good point. We don't have, social media anonymous. Maybe somebody should create a specific 12-step for that, and I say that because you can connect with more people in a big group than you can in individual psychotherapy. And, I sound like a heretic every time I say, stay out of my office, stay out of my agency, don't come through my door, fix this problem on your own. But honestly, like, the business isn't shrinking, and that bothers me. I want to live in a healthy community. So, go find some way to disconnect. But if you need help with this addiction, if you can't unplug yourself, you got to face facts. You're addicted. So come in and get professional psychotherapy if that's what it takes. It can be a process addiction. There's two kinds, right? There's substance, and then there's process. Substance is the chemicals we ingest to which we become addicted, and that could be anything from methamphetamine to chocolate. And then the other is process, which involves things like behaviors that create the same neurological or a very similar neurological reward pathway, which could be everything from gambling and pornography to social media and softball. If you can't pull away in a healthy way, you might be addicted. Process addictions would be an interesting podcast too. But anyway, we've gone on long enough, I think now. Mike, you want to ask Kevin your question? This is coming. I hope you prepared.
I didn't prepare. I guess thought I was maybe immune to this question. No. I remember the question. I'm good.
Kevin, how do you tend to your mental health besides stay off social media?
Hey, marketing guys, stay off social media.
Yeah, I think it's just getting outside, making time for exercise, realizing what recharges my batteries after a long, stressful week. I enjoy also video games, just kind of shutting the mind off, something that I know and enjoy. Baseball used to be one of these things, but my bicep and arm no longer allows me to do it. But yeah, getting out, getting exercise, and making time for stuff that recharges me after my batteries get drained.
Good answer.
Yep.
Good analogy too about the recharging the batteries. Well, thanks. This has been enlightening. I hope it was good for our audience. If it was, please subscribe, share around, give us a rating and review. They say that helps spread the word, spread the gospel, the good news of guns and mental health. On behalf of our title sponsor, Armscor, we love you, Armscor. Thank you for being the leader in this and being the first to print our mental health screenings on your product boxes. That's a huge help. And on behalf of my Zephyr Wellness family here in Northern Nevada, we thank you and we wish you all great mental wellness. Bye-bye.